So if you've been following along, you know that LED strips are going to run up underneath this flange inside the enclosure, shining down. Now the problem is that LED strips, they can go around a corner like that just fine, but they don't go around a corner when they're flat like this. They can't bend in that direction. They're actually quite rigid around that plane. So we really need a solution to get around the corner. Now an easy one is that we could connect wires and solder 3 wires at each point and try and keep them fastened down and everything. That works. I'd like to see if I can do it better. So I've got some designs here for essentially a bunch of little circuit boards that I'm going to cut on the CNC machine out of this piece of fairly oxidized copper and make into little corner and connector pieces for the LEDs. I'm interested to see how it goes. It could certainly neaten things up a little bit. So I'm going to cut this on the machine and we'll see how they go. So I went ahead and after we cut these, painted them black, and then I'm sanding the paint off where I'm going to make connections. Makes it look a bit nicer, stops oxidization, and everyone's happy. Do I want to come? And he said, yeah, if they approve my leave. And that was his bluff. Needless to say, they approved his leave, so now he's going to Mexico. That's just brilliant. I love it. Also backed them with double-sided tape, some nice high temperature stuff to allow me to stick them down neatly inside the enclosures. Having stuck them down, I'm carefully feeding the LEDs through the little holes that I'd made so that they can pass from the part where the amplifier is into the sealed part of the box, and carefully sticking them down on top of my copper contacts and along their run. It's worth noting with LED strips, I didn't just order these off eBay. The thing is, especially in Australia, cars get really hot in summer. 60 degrees Celsius is not uncommon inside a car, and so I don't just buy the cheapest LED strips I can get my hand on. These strips that I've used in the past, I've got experience with the adhesive on them, and I know that they stay put in high temperatures, and that's really nice. Of course, I made those curves, those circuit board corners, with the length of the LED strip in mind, because they do cut in 5cm increments, and so I needed to be able to line them up at the right part, as you can see here. Line them up so they're contacted. Doing a rubbish soldering job here, kind of tricky,
but getting them joined up nonetheless. Everyone's happy. And then coming along with some white polyurethane sealant and sealing up where they travel from the open part of this build into the sealed subwoofer enclosure. Now laying a bead of sealant along the entire build so that I can put the bottom panel on permanently. So this is a really nice sealant and adhesive, really nice and strong. The trick here is actually using a really careful amount. It's a little bit like using RTV for sealing engine parts together. You want to use enough that you get a complete seal that's robust, but you don't want to use so much that it squeezes out everywhere and makes a mess. And of course looks are quite important here, so using this white polyurethane, I was very careful with application so that when we pop this top on here, oh, look at that lighting. This is really exciting. I mean, it's not a trivial amount of work at this point, getting it all together. So the next stage is some diffusion for the lighting. We've got the lighting inside the box, but we've also got it along the inside, along the top edge, I should say. And the intention with that is to light up a diffuser so that the top edge glows rather than just the panel. So the lighting lights up this translucent acrylic, frosted acrylic if you like, lights that up and so that edge glows. So I've bent them to shape with some heat. I'm just marking where to cut them now so that it's all nice and symmetrical. And pulled a little bit of tension on them so they meet up with the curve along the top of the box as well. Some little screws to hold it in place. I certainly deliberated a long time on how to do that. It all worked out quite neatly. It certainly wasn't a problem to do in the end, which is nice. So this part looks a little bit controversial. What I'm doing is making an exact copy of the footprint of the amplifier, and that's because these are sitting on little baseboards in the build so they're at the right level. They're going to be finished cosmetically as well, and so I needed these boards to match the shape of the amp, and I figured the easiest way to do that would be to copy it with a flush trim like this. Then we've got the clear window part. So this is polycarbonate. I'm using polycarbonate here because it's quite robust. It's not quite as hard a surface finish as acrylic, but it's quite robust and resilient. And I am pulling a curve in the shape of the box. So polycarbonate's a good choice because it's more flexible than acrylic. And I'm also using polycarbonate here for the top fascias. And that's not actually something that I ended up sticking with. We got the enclosures finished with these parts, but I ended up remaking them. And so you're going to see details about what we ended up with rather than what I'm doing right here in an upcoming episode. But I guess this also shows you just how much time I ended up wasting making all of these parts the way that I did, when in the end, by making them, I figured out a better way to go about it instead. Sometimes that is just how it goes, and it certainly helps to give me more experience, learn more about my craft. Sometimes a bit frustrating as well, but what are you going to do? And now these are the windows for the subwoofer boxes, and drilling all of our mounting holes in there. They'll obviously be gasketed as well as screwed, but I want lots of screws there so we've got a nice consistent seal. And then countersinking all of those screw holes for using countersunk screws underneath the top trims.
Okay, so that marks the end of the fabrication process. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm saying that after weeks and weeks and weeks. Woodworking and metalworking, fabrication is done. That means it's upholstery time, which is pretty exciting, pretty trepidating, because this is where we start to get the end result and the end finish coming out. And it's where the project becomes perhaps a little bit more delicate, and we've got to be a little bit more careful to protect that finish. So I'm going to get started with perhaps the most concealed part, which is the loading chamber. The reason I'm doing this is because the loading chamber itself is still detached from the box. It is going to be trimmed all as one piece, so that needs to be attached to the box permanently. But first I'm trimming the inside with carpet. I'm using carpet that is an exact match for the stuff in the 86, in the boot at least, and it should work out really well. So I'm going to trim the inside of that, I'm going to trim the bottom of the baffle, and then I'm going to attach those two pieces together. Let's get to it.
So here we are at the upholstery process. It's a really interesting thing. Certainly you want to see things pay off, and you also don't want to make any mistakes, because you can peel pieces off and start again, but it's not a whole lot of fun. There are seams in this joint and I've cut them into the box. It does make things a little bit more manageable to trim, and I've done them in ways that I think are visually appealing as well. So that's pretty cool. Done a little bit of filler here and there to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. Incidentally, I did some of that filler and mixed it way too cold. I was on a pretty tight deadline as well, so that was fun, having filler that didn't set up quickly enough to sand it, you know, getting it under halogen lights, trying to get it to heat up and cure quicker. But anyway, you can see me here now with this beautiful vinyl, you know, leather style vinyl. Matches the interior of the car quite nicely, and tucking it into into the seams in the box here, so it all wraps very nicely. And then moving on, see, we've tucked the next piece in there, and I'm wrapping that around the side, along the side of the box.
Yeah, got better access. Yeah. Just recorded 8 minutes of the glue solidifying slowly. Yeah, you've overlubed. So tight. Upholstering around the loading chamber mouth. We've got a trim to go in there, but of course we need to have our upholstery pulled in nice and tight. So a couple of staples to hold that all in place as well, especially where the seams are and there's a little bit more bulk there. And having wrapped all the way around everything, I'm now wrapping that around the top edge into the box, and that's going to be then, that seam will be covered by that, you know, frosted acrylic that I showed you just before. And just getting everything wrapped in nicely so there's no lifted sections and no bubbles or anything. And of course, all of this masking happens so that I didn't inadvertently spray adhesive inside the enclosure. Certainly I spent too much time painting all of that to end up damaging that with glue. This is where things get pretty exciting because we've got finish on the inside and finish on the outside as well, peeling away all this masking to see what it actually looks like. Fitting up the lighting inside of there. Have a breather for a sec. And look at that. Now this is digital lighting, so it can follow in patterns and stuff instead of being one static color across everything. And I've laid that out symmetrically so that it follows up both sides of the box at the same time. I figured that goes without saying at this point of the video, but worth mentioning. You do want things to look nice like this all the way around the edge. And there is actually the ability to light up the edge of the box differently to the inside of the box as well, because they're on separate data circuits. But digital LED lighting, there we go. Oh, look at that diffuser. That edge is lit up really nicely. Digital lighting is a whole thing in itself. It's really simple at face value. A little bit more complicated when you're doing a build like this. But that's a story for another day, I reckon. Oh, that looks so nice, doesn't it?
So those mounting holes are revealed again. I went about finding them, and then now we've got essentially the main structure of these boxes is complete, and it's ready to start fitting out and putting in the vehicle. Oh my goodness, doesn't that look amazing? And certainly a lot of time and effort paying off with a finished look like that. Oof. Can't wait to show you the next steps. So tune in for the next episode of Connected.